Science? No, sci-outs is not a funny joke. It's This Is Going Well, I Think, with David Cooper. And I'm David Cooper. It's This Is Going Well, I Think, the show where no one's listening. No one cares. The show where every episode's the last episode. We had him on recently. We're having him again. One of my favorites, Dan Riskin, science expert, will join us to go through some science stories of the day. And if having Dan on the show isn't something to look forward to, then, well, you probably wouldn't have gotten this far anyway. So here he is, Dr. Daniel K. Riskin, a man of bat science. He likes bats. Seriously, he studies bats.
Well, I see you, but I don't hear you.
Oh my gosh.
External headphones. Talk.
Talkity talk talk talk.
Yeah, that's you.
Oh.
David Cooper, are you wearing your pajamas right now? It's a nice shirt.
No, it's a shirt, but it's little people having sex, if you can see it.
Ah.
It looks like a friendly shirt you'd wear to the beach, but it's little figures, going down on each other and doing sex and stuff. It's a vulgar shirt.
Great. You can wear that at the beach. Hey, there's a lion paper in my weekly science stuff. Can I tell you about the lions?
Oh, I didn't even look at your weekly science stories.
Yeah, sure. So let me tell you this lion story. This, my friend, is an Aesopian tale of ecology. And I say Aesopian in making up that word because it's really like it should be an Aesop's fable. It's not. If you look up Aesop's fable of the ant and the lion, you will not get a fable because it does not exist, but ChatGPT could write one for you, I'm sure. But in ecology, there's this new paper, so I see you pulling up I can see what you're doing.
No, I'm pulling up your notes, yeah.
You're pulling up my notes, yeah, okay, fine.
It's reflecting in my glasses. You think I'm distracted, but I'm distracting myself with trying to understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, I knew you were on topic. I was just pointing out you're pulling up your notes. I mean, I knew what you were doing.
No, I was looking at porn, man. It's all porn.
Yeah, no. Well, this is basically ecology porn because there's an ant called an acacia ant, which is extremely, extremely painful when it bites you. It is famous. It's on the Schmidt pain index as I think a 3.3 plus or something like that. It ranks very, very, very high. It hurts. I think the description is that it feels like a nail going through your cheek when this thing stings you. Very, very painful. And they live in Africa, and they live inside acacia plants. And so the plant is defended. The plant provides a home for the ants, and the ant sticks up for the home. So if any animal comes and tries to eat the acacia, the ants come out and sting it, and it goes away. And it's so painful that even elephants are deterred by these ants. So because not only do they sting with great pain, but they also know how to go up the trunk of the elephant and sting it from the inside of its nose.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that would hurt so much, but that's apparently, that may be the key to their success against elephants. Anyway, that was in the scientific paper. That was a good nugget.
Oh, because the elephant skin is so thick and tough. The elephants are like, try piercing that. And the ants are like, I will pierce that in your nose.
I wonder, surely they have nerve endings. Like, I think if you've ever been stung by a bee on the bottom of your foot, it still hurts even though you have calloused foot. Like, the chemicals still probably set off pain receptors. It's an interesting question. But certainly up the nose has got to hurt, and that's just intuitive.
Try plucking a hair, like, out of, the bottom of your chin versus a hair from inside your nose. The pain is...
Oh...
Or try plucking your eyebrows, which barely hurts at all, or a nose hair.
Nose hair is the most painful thing. I can barely handle it. Like, it hurts so much.
And so maybe the elephants are the same as us, and the ants are like, tapping into that.
Or more. I mean, they have so many nerve endings in there, so many muscle tendrils, and like, it's the elephant. Oh, it's a big deal. So anyway, these ants. They're living their lives. They're doing great. And then these invasive ants, I think they're called big-headed ants. You've got the notes in front of you. I can't remember what they're called.
Yeah.
Are they big-headed ants?
They are big-headed ants in Kenya, or as Canadians say, Kenya.
Yeah, in Kenya. Anyway, these ants have invaded and they kill the acacia ants. They're tough and they rip these acacia ants to shreds. And when they do that, the acacia trees stand vulnerable, and as a result, the elephants are eating them more. And so the rate at which elephants are eating these plants has gone up 6 or 7 times. And as a result, there are fewer trees in certain parts of this habitat. And lions use those trees to sneak up on zebras. Zebras are their favorite food, but zebras are very fast. And so if you want to eat a zebra, you have to sneak up on it and hide so that it gets close so that you can start chasing it and catch it very, very soon, because a zebra, once it accelerates, is much faster than a lion. But if a lion can catch it while it's accelerating, it can catch it. But that means that the race has to start when the lion is right next to the zebra, and trees are great for that. So zebras like to be out in the field, and they're like, get me away from trees, because there's going to be a lion hiding there, and then the lions hide in the trees. So elephants knock down all the acacia trees. Now the lions don't have a way to get close to the zebras, so they can't eat zebras. They can't get close to them. And so as a result, they've had to change what they hunt. And they've switched in these habitats where the invasive ants are, they've switched from zebras, their preferred food, to buffalo. Buffalo are easy to catch, but once you catch them, they are very, very tough, and they will kick you in the face, and they will really hurt you. Like
it's tough to take one down for a lion.
Oh, so hard for a pride of lions working together to take one down. Never mind like one lone male working by himself. But like, anyway, the buffalo are very hard to kill, and they don't like being killed at all, and they will fight you very hard.
I feel like some animals do like being killed, like rabbits, for example. Rabbits just want to die. They just want to die.
Yeah, sure. Rabbits love it. Well-known fact. Anyway, but the lions in Kenya are feeding on buffalo, which is not their preferred food source, putting themselves at greater risk of getting kicked in the face and injured because of an ant. And that feels very Aesop to me.
It's like so many steps of indirection that an introduced species or an invasive species can affect something else that's totally unintended. It's like the lady who swallowed the fly to catch the dog, to catch the bird, to catch the monkey, you know.
Yeah, it's a really interesting chain reaction, and it's fun when it's the small organism that's having a big effect on the ecosystem. I think it's a good, powerful metaphor. And if Aesop were around today, I'm sure he would take advantage of that story. And maybe we should just follow in his example, and maybe you can work it into your introductory comments. Explain the ecology of this ant, and then work that into your opening bit. What do you think?
Yeah, that'll be a hot 2 minutes. So I'm just looking through your stories.
Okay, I should pull them up too.
Okay.
Wait, not. Okay, this 4-holed piece of ivory found in a cave. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, let's do it. Tell me about this cave and ivory story that I definitely read beforehand, Dan.
Don't read it, because I don't want you to know how this goes. Close the window. Close it on your computer.
Window's closed. I'm keeping it open. I'm just not looking at it.
Okay, this is amazing. Sometimes you find something from the ancient past, and you don't know what it is. And you have to figure it out. And so there are these tools that have been found from ancient sort of cave people deposits that look like a tusk with some holes, not drilled through it because they wouldn't have had drills, but there are holes in it. And people have wondered what those are. And some researchers in Germany found one of these things. They put together 15 pieces, and when they assembled them all like a puzzle, they came together to make this piece of ivory. It's mammoth tusk. That's about 20 centimeters long, which is in inches.
4.
Yeah, something like that. 4-ish.
5.
4-ish, 5-ish. Anyway.
6.
It fits in your hand, and it's got these 4 holes in it. And the holes have carvings around them in a spiral pattern. So each of the holes looks kind of twisty as you look at it. And the holes are all kind of through on the same axis, so that if you put your fingers through the holes, it would work, right? You could put all your fingers through the holes. You know what I mean?
Are these like caveman brass knuckles, Dan?
Right. So this is the kind of question that people have to ask is like, what is this thing? Is it caveman brass knuckles? Now, when people started finding these things back in the day, they were like, this is clearly something that a shaman would have held because it's a spiritual thing. But like, that's a lazy answer. And that's just what they called everything. Like every single, a conch shell, that's got to be what the shaman used. Oh, a stick, that's got to be what the shaman used. Unless it's got like a pointy bit, in which case they think it's for hunting. Everything was called like, oh, that's what a shaman used. So people have gotten a little farther along in their thinking on this, and given these people from 35 to 40,000 years ago the benefit of the doubt that maybe they did more than stand around and listen to somebody holding different objects. Just had a table in front of him, and he would pick up the shell, and then he'd pick up the thing with the holes in it, and then he'd pick up something else and be like, oh, now I've got the power. Did it.
Now I've got the ivory with 3 holes in it. You know what that means.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, they were trying to figure out what this thing did. And it occurred to them that those holes, maybe you could do something with a string through it or a fiber or like a webbing. And as they started to play with it, and then they looked at that twisting that was on the outside of it, they started to play with ideas about maybe you could use this to make a rope out of reeds. And so they came up with this idea that maybe what you had was a bunch of people working together, and you'd have you'd have 4 people on one side, and each of them would be feeding through reeds through the holes and twisting them as they put them in. And then as they get to the end of the reed, they put another reed on it and twist it together and keep feeding it through. And then the person on the other side is pulling those 4 strings through and then twisting them all together into a rope. And so they were like, that could be a thing they did. Let's see if that works. So they built one and they tested it with reeds and it worked. And they were able to make like 5 meters of rope in like 10 minutes with this thing. And so they think that this was a tool that was used by cave people 35 to 40,000 years ago to make rope or fishing nets or trap lines or who knows what they were doing with these things. And part of the evidence for that use is that they did find plant material on the insides of those holes, suggesting that plant was shoved through them. So just a really neat like puzzle of like, what is this thing? And then coming up with an outrageous guess and then testing it by trying to build one themselves. And they say themselves, like, we don't know that that's what they use this for, but this is a way better guess than the shaman thing.
Like, there's good evidence compared to shaman, but it's still not great evidence. It's anecdotal, but it's a good theory, and we tested what would make this theory true, and that seems to also be true, so it's a good guess.
Yeah, but it's fun. It's just a fun, like, archaeology story about trying to uncover what people did in the past. And
how do they know at night when these schmucks weren't making rope? They didn't go to the shaman, put it on the table, and then the shaman would hold it for people as a religious artifact.
Yes.
Could be both, Dan. It could be both, yeah.
Could have been double duty. It could have been a sex toy. Nobody knows.
You said it, not me.
Yeah, well, it's got 4 holes in it. So right there, there's all kinds of possibilities.
But aren't they like a centimeter wide? Okay, I guess that'd be good for me, actually. Because I have a small penis.
Sure.
Yeah, you get that part? You got that?
That was implied.
You got that?
Speaking of small things, there's also a paper about stingers.
Stingers.
Although penises aren't part of the paper, but they use like... Can
we pause for a second here? Do any animals have penises that sting?
Yeah, bedbugs. Bedbugs do something called traumatic insemination, where the female doesn't even have an opening where a penis would go. She just gets stabbed in the belly.
Oh, God.
Oh, it's awful. And it lowers her lifespan. It's like a whole thing. It's really amazing. So she goes out of her hiding place in your electrical socket at night and crawls across the room to feed on your blood. And she feeds on your blood. And then on her way back, because she's at her most fertile, a whole bunch of males jump on her and sequentially take turns stabbing her and injecting her with their sperm. And for every one of them, I think it's the last one that mates with her that's going to have the highest likelihood of passing on its DNA. So every time she gets stabbed, her life expectancy goes down. But every male has a selfish incentive to be the last one that stabbed her. And so it's a terrible, terrible situation for the female, or at least my anthropomorphic view of how it must, I mean, who knows maybe she's really happy. I don't know what it's like to be a bed bug. It's really hard to know. But the math certainly is that she needs to do that if she wants to reproduce. That's the only way she can, but it does lower her lifespan. I mean, that said, having testicles also lowers the lifespan of men. And I love having testicles and wouldn't want to give them up even if I did get 10 more years of life. So
really?
Yeah. People, there's data on eunuchs who have had their penises chopped and they live longer.
Well, I assume, like, imagine they were in the body, like they weren't just hanging out there. Like if they were internal to you, you got all the same testosterone, you still could produce.
Well, that's what kills you. That's what kills you earlier, is having that. Is you live 10 years less because of all the stress and all the hormones that come out of there. If you didn't have balls, you would live 10 years longer, but you wouldn't pass on your DNA, and so it's not a viable solution, so evolution doesn't favor it. Anyway, these bedbugs, the traumatic insemination, it's a whole thing.
It's wild. Now, if they go too hard, so to speak, And she dies. Does the corpse give birth?
No, I don't think so. I think she's got to survive. But I think it just lowers like her. I remember the number 26% jumps out. I think it's 26. Her lifespan decreases 26% every time she mates or something like that. I can't remember.
Okay.
But I just made that number up.
So it's not like they're going so hard and then like she either dies or just barely makes it. And if she barely makes it, then she'll have offspring.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about. I mean, usually, I think the problem isn't so much like the trauma of being stabbed. I think it's more about how dirty the penis of a bedbug is and all the bacteria that get injected into her body.
Well, now the bedbug and I have more in common than I thought.
Yeah, there's the size thing, and now there's also the bacteria thing.
The filth.
So, yeah, and let's just say it stops there. So anyway, this new paper has nothing to do with bedbugs. They look at the stinging parts of a whole bunch of different animals and how they scale with size. Because the smallest one they could find was on this microscopic organism called a radiolarian, which is like, you need a microscope to look at this thing, but it's got a bunch of spikes sticking out of it that are there to protect it. And then the biggest is the horn of a narwhal, which is actually its tooth. And what they do is they look at the tip and the shape of the tip to see how they differ. And what they basically find is that very, very small things have much sharper tips than very, very big things. And it's because there's a trade-off for stabbers about you need to penetrate, so you need to be pointy and have a small diameter, but you don't want to buckle because you don't want to break when you try to stab something. And if you're very big and long and pointy, you'll buckle, you'll break the stick when you try to stab someone. And so if you're narwhal sized, you need to have a bigger cross-sectional diameter. And so it's a much more rounded tip. But if you're tiny, you're not going to buckle. The magnitudes are different. And so when you're very, very small, you have a very, very pointy stinger. So as a result, if you look at a bee's stinger, it looks different at a microscopic scale. If you blew it up to the size of a narwhal, it would be a different shape, and they hold across animal kingdoms. And this is just a kind of cool thing about stingers.
I was recently watching Fran Lebowitz give a talk, and she said the opposite of talking is not listening. The opposite of talking is waiting. That whole time you were saying that, I was waiting to say this, I guess, is in short.
Go ahead.
Plus, it was hard to follow. It was just stinger, size, microscopes. I didn't understand any of it.
Narwhals? Did you get narwhal?
Well, that's what I want to ask about.
Oh, okay, sure.
It's crazy that unicorns, the magical land creature that has a horn, doesn't exist. But the magical sea creature that has a horn does exist. Although I still don't. It's almost like an unbelievable animal.
It really is.
Have you ever seen one?
No. I've seen dead ones.
I've seen pictures of dead unicorns.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, there are. I mean, people call them the unicorns of the sea, and they're really amazing. And that's just one tooth. I forget if it's the left or the right, but it's always the same one. Although sometimes there are individuals that have two long teeth instead of just one.
Wait, that's the tooth? The stabber's the tooth?
It's their front incisor. It's their middle front tooth.
That's evolved up to be on their forehead?
Yeah, and it spins around. And if you look at the skull, you can see it go right into the tooth socket. It's amazing.
What?
Yeah.
So their jaw just goes...
Well, it's not their jaw because it's their upper. It's below their nose. It goes out.
Well, whatever the teeth are attached to, that bone, it just goes and creates a socket up there?
Well, no, it's just like, it's elongated, just like your dog has a long rostrum. It's like that. The whale has a long rostrum, and then the teeth at the end, instead of pointing down towards the lower jaw, they point straight out, and then it's a big giant tube, and it sticks all the way out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, it's cool. I forget. Yeah, I got to pull up the Latin name of these things.
I made the real noise that happens during evolution. Zoop.
Yeah.
That's a science noise.
I'm looking up the Latin name, I think, means one tooth. Wikipedia. What is it? Monodon. Yeah, that's it.
Monodon.
Monodon, monoceros. Monodon means one tooth, and monoceros means one horn. So, yeah, that's their Latin name.
I always thought it was sticking up out of its forehead.
Well, it kind of does, but it really is attached to their upper face.
Oh, yeah. Wow. What a magical creature. And it stabs stuff with that thing?
Well, they don't really they do stab a little bit, but their main thing is they kind of use it like a fencing sword, and they whack fish with it and then eat them.
How many of them are there?
Narwhals? Offhand, I don't know the population of narwhals in the north, I'm afraid.
Oh, wow. It's like in the hundreds of... As of 2017, the global population is estimated to be 123,000 mature individuals and 170,000 individuals total. I thought there'd be less of these things.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good number.
It is a good number. And yeah, I've just pulled up pictures of their skulls. And isn't it, are you looking at the skull too? I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, I'm looking at all kinds of stuff. It's wild.
It looks like there's a thing coming out of its nose, but it's a thing coming out of his tooth socket. It's amazing. And they don't have any other teeth, I don't think. Maybe they do have teeth in the back of the jaw, but I seem to remember they don't have any other teeth. I can't remember.
I see one sleeping inside out, and a polar bear's eating it.
Yeah, polar bears do like to eat them, as do people sometimes.
People eat narwhals?
Yeah.
Good for them.
People up north eat all kinds of whales.
It's good stuff. Is it healthy for you, whale? I don't think so.
I think...
Mercury.
Yeah, mercury. I think historically it would have been very healthy.
Fatty.
But I think now it's a bit of an issue.
A lot of blubber, though. High in cholesterol, maybe?
I can't speak to that. Don't know.
What do you know?
Not much, apparently. We've really gone off on a narwhal tangent. I was really just talking about stingers, and they were at one end of the extremes. I mean, good thing you didn't ask me questions about radiolarians, because I know even less about them.
What's a radiolarian?
Well, radiolarians it's a well-known fact that they're very small, and they're spiky, and they don't like to be eaten.
Oh, wow.
So they spike to protect themselves.
Isn't that like a sea urchin looking thing?
Well, it's way smaller than a sea urchin. I think they're microscopic.
What do they do to prevent being eaten?
I think they're spiky.
They're spiky. Oh, they look fun. They look very sci-fi.
The best defense is a good spiky.
It's not nuclear weapons?
No, well, nuclear weapons are a deterrent. That's different from a defense.
I suppose. Should we end it?
Yeah. But let's end it with something amazing.
Something amazing.
That's good, because I got a text I got to respond to, too.
What's amazing?
Yeah, we got lots to talk about. Okay, let's...
Amaze me. You got nothing.
Oh.
You got fucking nothing.
Wait, I do. Hang on, it's coming.
You got nothing. It's not coming.
Oh, I have a story to try. So I'm about to give a bunch of talks, and...
Oh, now I got to be guinea pig for your talk story? Fine, let's go. I'm listening.
How do you think... So here's the thing. I'm going to be giving a talk to a whole bunch of kids, grade 7, grade 8, and about 500 of them. And I'm really looking forward to it, because that's a fun audience, but it's a tough audience. Like, they will not be forgiving.
They will be throwing their boogers at you.
Okay, so here's my opening story. When I went to Costa Rica for the first time to work on bats, there were a lot of insects all over the place. But one place where there were a lot of insects was the kitchen. So we had this kitchen, and there was a woman who worked there. She was like 20, and she was all excited because she was from Canada, but she was working in Costa Rica. But man, every time she saw an insect in the kitchen, she flipped her lid like she had never been in a jungle before. And it was really weird because, you're in Costa Rica. There's going to be insects in the jungle. Like, we're in the jungle. But then she told her backstory, and it all made sense. So it turns out that she really doesn't like insects because of something that happened to her a couple of years before when she traveled to Central America. She was on some kind of like trip where they were like helping in a village where they like dug a hole to put an outhouse or something, and like she was doing all this stuff. But as she was traveling with a group of other young people, she got very sick. And then she got like really, really sick to her stomach, and they were moving from village to village. And so she had this terrible experience. You know how brutal it is when you really have to go to the bathroom, but you have to move. And so she said she'd like ruined her pants, and like it was all really terrible. And she had to have a shirt she was wearing as a diaper, and she was a mess.
Poop is can I interrupt? Poop is great with kids. They love poop.
Yeah. So far the story's good. So she rolls into the next town, and she needs to go to the bathroom. Not surprisingly. And they say, oh, there's the outhouse. And the outhouse, it's corrugated metal, and it's got a door. And she's like, okay, fine. So she goes in, and she sits down, and the door closes. And she has her headlamp, but it's off because it's the middle of the day. But when the door closes, it gets quite dark. And she's sitting there, and she starts going to the bathroom, and then she hears it start to rain. And she's like, that's weird, because I don't think it was about to rain when I came in here. And she calls out to her friend who's just outside, and she says, is it raining? Her friend says, no. She's like, but I can hear rain right on the corrugated metal. And so she turns on her headlamp, and it turns out it wasn't rain. It was just a whole lot of cockroaches all over the inside of the outhouse, all up and down the walls and across the ceiling. And as she turns on her light, she can see that there are hundreds of them. But because she turned her light on, they do a fear response, which is to let go and drop.
Oh, no.
And so immediately they all fall on her and on her lap and in her underwear, and she screams and runs out of the outhouse.
The underwear! Why the underwear?
And now she doesn't like it when there are insects in the kitchen.
She's allowed.
Yeah, that's how I felt about it.
If you get a cockroach or rained cockroaches, literally did start raining cockroaches once you turn on her light.
Hallelujah.
Oh, yeah, it's raining cockroaches. Hallelujah. I was thinking of Leonard Cohen, and I was like, no, that doesn't work. It goes like this, the fourth, the fifth, the cockroach in my underwear filth. I don't know. That's fifth and filth. Yeah.
Hallelujah there, too. Yeah, absolutely.
But, yeah, if you get rained cockroaches in your underwear, I feel like you're allowed to be scared of bugs for the rest of your life, and no one's allowed to give you a hard time.
Yeah, so I just have to find a way to tie that into anything that's of note in this talk. Like, it's a good story. It'll get them, and then I just have to make it into like what I learned about.
You want a moral. You want a takeaway.
I need to Aesop it. I need to do something to it. I need the ants and the elephants, and I got to work it.
What about like no matter how scared you are of because a lot of people are scared of bats. Are you going to be talking about bats?
Oh yeah.
So a lot of people are scared of rodents, insects. No matter how scared you are, it's never going to be as bad as the woman who had cockroaches raining in her underpants.
And then I say, or is it? Good night, everybody.
And then have the person hosting it be like, we've actually got Donna here from the cockroach rain. And then people start screaming, Jerry, Jerry, Jerry. And then you'll fight her, and then Steve will have to break you two up.
Or how about this? How about this? But if you reach under your chair, we have a surprise for each of you.
And then have nothing there but gum or whatever.
No, cockroaches. Oh. We've taken the time to put a jar of cockroaches under every chair.
Horrific.
Or if we really have time, and like, do you think we could set up some kind of ceiling drop?
I don't know. Might be outside of budget. They pay you well for these appearances?
Well, not if I blow it all on ceiling cockroach get-ups.
All right, well, it's a great story, and I think you're going to do well with it. Few suggestions. Definitely keep the pooping in.
Okay.
But if you want to keep it like more appropriate for kids, say poo-poo instead of shit, obviously. When you said she almost flipped her, I assumed you were going to say shit. And I'm like, first of all, you never swear. Second of all, I'm like, why are you swearing to kids?
I try not to.
But then you said flipped her lid, which I liked. But I would use the word underpants because it's like infantile. It's not obscene. Like panties or underwear might be too like, adult words.
Yeah, but I'm not saying panties. Nobody likes the word panties. I said underwear, but you think underpants is funnier. Underpants is a funnier word than underwear.
I think underpants is good and it's like more kid friendly.
Yeah, okay.
Like you told a story about a woman in her underwear, some parent, and it's like, oh no, I didn't do that.
No. She was in her underpants. Everybody just calm down. It was underpants.
She was in her underpants. It's like, oh, the science guy told my kid a delightful anecdote about a woman in her underpants. Or a woman in her underwear. He's selling underwear, cockroach sex. I don't know. Just a thought.
Yeah, it would be bad if I suddenly had a coughing attack or something at that moment and ended up saying like, in her, and no, you're going to make that into a sound clip to open this show. Never mind, forget it.
But the only way I can see a moral, in my limited brain, my cockroach-sized brain, my brain is not as big as a cockroach. It's the size of a cockroach brain, just for clarity.
Mm-hmm.
Is the only way to get the moral there is to be like, no matter your bugs or rodent fears or snake fears, if that's something you're going to touch on, you'll never have it as bad as this woman, unless you do.
You know what? I do talk a lot about how adrenaline helps with learning, and so I will talk. It'll be a great example of adrenaline. It's perfect.
Do you read notes? You got a teleprompter?
No, but I have a slideshow, and I can remember what I would need to say for every slide. So every slide reminds me of the story that I tell at this slide. It's really easy.
In a different life, I managed a bunch of nerds, engineers, and one of them, he was like a kind of a hippy-dippy guy, and his dad had the best job in the world. He was Jimmy Buffett's teleprompter.
Wow.
This guy toured the world with Jimmy Buffett. Changes in attitudes, latitudes, whatever.
Just holding pieces of paper or like turning a wheel?
No. He would program the teleprompter and he would make sure it moved at the rate Jimmy was singing so Jimmy would have the right lyrics on the right line as he sung them.
Wow.
All these old these old rockers use teleprompters. They're all fried.
I've worked with people who work the teleprompter, and if they're not good, you're high and dry, man. I can see why you would, if you had somebody that was doing a good job, you'd be like, keep that person, pay them, and have them in every city.
It's incredibly stressful and not relaxed to have a 24/7 relaxed persona where you're just hanging out.
Yeah.
You're a parrot head.
Yeah.
Taking it easy. It's a whole culture and a whole band and a whole movement based around baby boomers relaxing. He can't be screwing up lyrics in front of them. They're going to get stressed out.
Because what if it triggers you and then you just go into a rage and then the whole thing falls apart? It's House of Cards.
Jimmy Buffett is always dead now, but he's always one step away from being Rage Against the Machine.
But he made it. He got across the finish line without raging.
He did.
He pulled it off.
Never spent a minute raging, but it was touch and go, and the teleprompter did help.
It was because of teleprompter person. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Thank you, Dan. It's always been a pleasure.
It's always been a pleasure.
Yeah.
It's always been a pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
This was a pleasure too. Thanks, man.
Take care.